right, well, happy Friday, everyone. David Shepard here with Phil Hamilton for our weekend review. How you doing, Phil? How's everything in Newport News?
It can be summed up in one word: hot. We haven't had the rain shower that you had. Maybe we'll get one overnight, but it's been steamy the last 2 days.
Yeah, we got rain just now, and then I got caught in rain, I guess, on Wednesday. I was fine with it because I hadn't seen rain in a bit, so I got caught in the rain, but I didn't mind. A busy week. I don't know if any real surprises. Graham Plattner got the nomination for the Democrats there in Maine. I noticed about 20% didn't vote for him, and he was basically unopposed, and still you had 20% vote for Mills. And I take that back. I think there was an also ran in there too. I did notice that, and I'm going to work on a column on this one, that in talking about this, that his sleeve was rolled up so you could see his tattoos. And part of that is the whole appeal to ugliness, or the appeal to thuggery,
Right.
Which I've noticed more and more Democrats use either in their language or behavior. So anyway, it's off to the battle between Plattner and Collins, and she has an ad up already on him, which I think is pretty good. It's very rudimentary, though. It's kind of compare and contrast. And I wrote a column earlier this week that with Plattner, it's not so much the thuggery or the seediness of him, and he is a seedy person, but it's not just that. What I think really hurts him is that he's a phony. And I think that's how you hit him, as a phony. He's not an oyster farmer.
He's a mama's boy.
Right. He doesn't, he's not a working person. And he gets oysters for the mom's restaurant.
Yeah.
That's what he does. And so he's got to be exposed. I guess we're still on, and this has been the case since middle of April, we're on the verge of a deal with Iran. I must say my skepticism is that I don't think Iran will ever make a legitimate deal, because this regime, this is it for them. They're going to hang on to their deaths. They're not going to give up anything, really.
We didn't hear a whole lot about this recent round of attacks after they shot down the helicopter, but something tells me it was more than what was reported, because all of a sudden, at least what's been made public, there seems to have been a change of attitude. So maybe it was just one of those bombs that hit close and never really caused any deaths of leadership, but it might have been, something that was just done other than what was reported along the coast of Iran. The great thing about it is the revelation that Trump had been shuttling oil tankers out of there, for months, right under their noses, because they have no radar to pick it up. And it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of barrels of oil that has come out, which I think must be the cause of the recent reduction in gas prices, is because the market's still alive and well, and guess what? Iran didn't get a penny of it, because Trump was allowing these tankers under not necessarily escort, but the U.S. was protecting the ships as they were transporting the oil out. So you got to love it.
Yeah, I noticed even here in Northern Virginia, I saw for the first time, I only saw one station at under $4. I saw that. I should have filled up at the time. I don't think I filled up then.
The station I usually go to is down to $3.69 today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's much better than here. I don't know. Trump, I think, wants a deal. I worry maybe a little too much, because he wants to get this behind him, but I just don't trust the Iranians in any way, shape, or form to make a real deal that they're going to keep.
So. Well, you and I share the same cynicism about it, but I think if they sign a piece of paper and say they're going to do A, B, C, D, and E, I don't think Trump is going to turn a blind eye if they then go back on that while he's in office. Now, I think what they may be thinking is, okay, so we have to deal with this guy for 2 more years. We can do that, and we'll manage the next person. And I think that works as long as the next person is not J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I think both of those guys have been involved enough that Iran's not going to pull anything.
But they've always played American politics. Remember in the case of the Iranian hostage crisis, where they waited till after Carter lost.
Yeah.
And I think with Trump, they want to see if they can get a change in regime. Oh, now Trump will still have 2 more years, even if they get the Democrats in Congress.
Yeah.
But I just see them playing for that. I think as long as they're in power, we've got a problem, and they're going to continue to pursue nukes. So I'm no neocon, understand that. But I think, and I'm not calling for us to conduct a regime change, but I think the only victory would really be regime change.
Yeah. Well, regime change has happened twice already. They're under their 3rd string.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Well, the clerics still hold power. But I understand Trump's desire not to bomb the bridges and the power plants and all because we need the people on our side, and he doesn't want to alienate them, which I understand that. But we'll see if they have some sort of deal. I think Trump wants to try to get this behind him and then bring down oil prices and focus on the midterms. I think that's Trump's wanting to pivot.
Right.
So we'll see. I must tell you, I don't usually follow a lot of these court cases, but sometimes they will bleed into politics. And I remember hearing the case where Carmelo Anthony was on trial for murder. And for the longest time, I thought it was a basketball player because that's the only other Carmelo Anthony I knew of. You know, I have a friend who watches who says that she never takes sports news from me because she knows I really know very little about sports. But apparently this was a different Carmelo Anthony. It sort of had a political dynamic because certain people on the left started to turn this into a racial case. And I guess we kind of knew they would. But it seems to me a pretty straightforward case where he stabbed this guy. They weren't in a fight. It wasn't really a self-defense case because they were having a heated argument. But a heated argument's not a fight. And anyway, they then got a knife and bluntly stabbed him. But you'll hear a lot of the racial demagogues, Jasmine Crockett and others, get involved in this one. I think he got, 17 years? And I think that's about right.
He would not be eligible for parole for 17 years, I think, in Texas. But he got 35-year sentence.
What are your thoughts? I don't know if you have any thoughts on this case or the after.
I guess the most disingenuous thing, and you mentioned it, was race.
Yeah.
There were definitely 3 black jurors who were excluded from the jury pool because they were teachers. All 3 of them were teachers. And the prosecution didn't want teachers because they felt teachers would be overly sympathetic to a student. Not one of their students, but to a student in general.
Yeah.
What gets lost in all of this is there or at least one Asian, at least one Muslim, at least one Hispanic. So it was a multicultural jury, but it didn't have a black on it. So in essence, what it sounds like to me is they're starting to say, well, juries have to follow some DEI formula.
Okay.
And quotas have not worked. They don't work. They put people in silos. And in the justice system, you do your very best to select impartial jurors. And there's nobody has said that, these jurors weren't impartial. It only took them 3 hours to come to the conclusions, and most of that was probably reading through all the charges and the statutes and this, that, and the other. I mean, they might have made their decision in 15 minutes. But there's a lot of other stuff you have to have that background before you actually start debating the case. That's what's the most, I think, egregious thing about this is that as soon as they didn't get the verdict they liked, all of a sudden it became racial.
Yeah.
When they made it sound like it was an all-white jury. Well, it wasn't an all-white jury in the context of nationality, because, like I said, Asian, Hispanic, Muslims, that's a pretty heterogeneous group right there. So I think it's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in now. If you don't get your way, it's race.
Yeah, and I think from a constitutional legal standpoint, you can't claim that you'd have to have a jury of your same race. There's no call for that. I mean, imagine if it was a white defendant, would they demand an all-white jury? The other political thought I had about this is imagine if Kamala Harris were president right now. She would have demagogued this one. She would have probably reminded everybody that if she had a child, the kid would look like Carmelo. So we dodged a bullet in that case, that we didn't have Kamala Harris.
It's only gotten worse. I mean, the race card is the Trump card in the deck. that seems to be the MasterCard. It's just unfortunate that that's where a segment of our society goes every time they don't get their way.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think that it was in dispute that it was just a naked sort of attack to plunge a knife into someone who's not punching you or hitting you, anything like that. So
apparently Texas law says if you feel threatened with a knife, you can use a knife. If you feel threatened with a gun, you can use a gun. If you feel threatened with a fist, you can use a fist. Yeah. If you're having an argument and someone stands up and begins to approach you, and maybe even has put hands on you, that it wasn't a punch. It was, I think, just put hands on it. That's not cause for a knife. It could have been cause for a pushback. It could have been, but not a knife. And they make that distinction apparently in Texas law.
So it was a sad case. He seems like a really promising kid, a twin brother, I believe. And a great athlete and star. So, that is too bad.
The other thing is, what was the kid doing in another team's area?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, plain and simple. This is our space. Why are you in our space? We've asked you to leave. You didn't leave. Then you want to argue with us, and then So I mean, that whole situation kind of went under the radar. He was not with his team in their area. These boys were where the one that got murdered was where he was supposed to be. So that's another thing that seems to get swept under the carpet.
I guess some other mixed business news. We had inflation tick up, so 4.2%, not good on that front, and a lot of that deals with energy prices. But I noticed the stock market's still doing pretty good, closed up today.
Yes.
Closed up the last 2 days. I think one thing about the inflation that hurts is in terms of the market, although the market's still going up, but the concern is interest rates cuts will be off the table. And so I think that's the one thing that bothers the market. But 4.2% is not good, so hopefully that'll come down, or at least that was just a high. I feel it, you feel it. That's one thing that, as Ronald Reagan said, high inflation is a thief in the night.
Yeah.
So it takes from all of us. So that's why I think and I worry that maybe Trump's a little too anxious for a deal in Iran. And Trump, I understand him sometimes, and I kind of get the context of what he was saying. But he sometimes mangles things he's asked about inflation, and he says, well, I love a high inflation because when it comes back down, it's got more room to come back down or whatever. The other thing is they mangled, I heard this the other day, I don't care about inflation or whatever. The context of that was in a deal with Iran. Would he just make a bad deal because of concern about, say, higher inflation? And so they twisted his words. But anyway, I saw the clip where Trump says, I love the high inflation. So that's one of his mistakes. And I think when he's such a fast talker that he's saying all these things, but it's not good for a soundbite, because when you're saying all these things, you can either just parse it or clip it. But I understand his point that if we get a settlement in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, I think you'll see prices come down a good bit. When that will happen.
It was weird because I couldn't figure out why the prices of gasoline were coming down.
Yeah.
On Monday or Tuesday, he was doing one of his off-the-cuff press conferences, and he said, oh, by the way, we've been shuttling ships out like 12 a day. And so we're basically flooding the market with oil. And, then it made sense. That oil from the Strait of Hormuz is coming through.
Yeah, that's right. So, but it'll be good to get this fully opened. In some ways, I think a lot of the people in Iran are just laying low until this latest kerfuffle passes, and then I think you'll start seeing more domestic dissent.
Yeah.
Right now, people are just sort of laying low there. So maybe the argument could be the sooner we make a deal, even if it's not such a great deal, then the more domestic pressure the Iranian regime will feel. I don't know, but all my life, Iran has been a problem. Someone pointed out, you remember the late New York Times writer William Safire?
Yes.
And it was Matthew Cantonelli found one of his old articles about what 1980 will bring. And he mentioned the three I's or whatever. Inflation, Iran, and I think incompetence or something like that. But we're starting to see the same issue. Iran has been a thorn in our side. all my life, really.
Yeah.
And so it's a malignant regime. And actually, it's one of the oldest dictatorships in the world because they've been going for 40-something
47
years
years.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just a little kid when the Shah was there, so I wouldn't remember that. But yeah, it is a horrible regime. More stateside here, specifically in Virginia. I imagine we still have no budget, and we've got a couple weeks left for the drop dead date. Do they have talks planned? Do you know?
Apparently, there was, and maybe it was just a phone call with everybody that wanted to participate on it. But apparently, Spanberger endorsed the House version of the conference report, which basically means we keep the sales tax exemption, and it becomes more of a question of integrity than anything else. You know, we made a deal, they accepted the deal, and the deal goes till 2035. And if you pull the rug out from this one, then other businesses that don't have a thing to do with data centers are going to say you just can't trust Virginia.
Yeah.
And that's a very legitimate concern. On the other hand, you've got the Senate Democrats who are still looking to spend $2.3 billion because if they did away with the exemption, they'd have $2.3 billion to spend, and they want to spend it.
Yeah.
So, but she did endorse, according to the news report that I read this morning on that phone call, that she endorsed the House position on the budget conference. So we'll see. I mean, I'm just glad because I think I might have been part of a conference committee that went until June 9th. Well,
okay.
June 9th is come and gone. So no longer was a budget conference committee that I was on a record holder in any sense of the imagination. But
yeah, it's not a good record.
Yeah, we're on June 12th now. So this would have been the second Friday in June. Was the June that the date that we made our decision. That's why I can remember it being June 9th. Now we're at June 12th. Again, it's the second Friday in June, and staff was always telling us, we've got to get this done. We've got to get this done because it takes time to do everything that needs to be done logistically.
Right.
And the Democrats don't seem to be the least bit worried or concerned about logistics. They have just as soon dump it on their desk at 11:59. I guess, and think everything's going to be nice and peachy keen when you haven't had a chance to do much about it and make people aware of it or anything else. Maybe that's their strategy. It's going to be so bad they don't want the citizens to know what's in it.
Yeah, it probably is. Well, we'll see if the Senate continues under Lucas's control to hold out. I think Democrats are getting sort of what they deserve in this, that, you know, they allowed her to be the thug for so long, and now they're having to deal with her.
Mm-hmm.
Now it turns on them. They were fine when she would block Youngkin. They were fine with that, but now she's blocking Spanberger. And by the way, this is an aside, but I think it was horrible that we didn't get the Caps and the Wizards. The reason is that we'd have two major league franchises in Virginia, major franchises, and people say, well, we got other business, we don't need it, but we got plenty of other businesses. That's exactly it. This would be unique. To have the Wizards and the Caps. So that's a major loss. Speaking of Virginia, another thing, apparently John Rokovich, the Virginia Tech rector, is suing Spanberger for firing him because the governor's got the power, but in the law it talks about reasons.
Yeah.
Malfeasance, misfeasance, things like that. And she never stated that. So kudos to Rokovich for fighting back and saying, no, I'm not leaving unless you give the reasons.
Yeah.
So I was impressed to see that. I don't know anything about the case, really, and I don't know what the guy did wrong. I've heard good things about him. I've heard he's a great Virginia Tech sort of booster, and I think it's good to fight back on that one, and so we'll start learning more about that case. Yeah. I was reading a little bit of background. Governors really haven't done anything quite like this. There have been some cases, but usually it's been spelled out and as to why. And also, there are cases where governors voluntarily have asked for people to leave, but not really we're firing them. So we'll see what happens in that case, and I'll follow that. I don't know, anything else that I missed on Virginia?
Yes, absolutely. A federal lawsuit has been filed And I think the federal lawsuit named the governor, named the attorney general, and to bring it into your neighborhood, apparently named the Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney.
Okay.
And this is over Virginia passing a law, and I guess your Commonwealth Attorney up there maybe had been doing stuff before, having Virginia law dictate what federal employees can and cannot do. And it relates specifically to ICE. And the whole idea of they can't be masked and this, that, and the other.
Okay, that's right.
They can tell the state police all day long what they can and cannot do. You can't, a state government cannot tell a federal government employee what they can and cannot do.
Right, yeah.
And I guess the thinking is, well, if a federal employee was to get a speeding ticket in Virginia, because we have speed limits and they didn't pay any attention to it, we could give them a ticket. Okay, so if you want to give them a ticket for wearing a mask, do that, but it ain't going to go anywhere. But I think this is actually impeding public safety of federal employees. And I don't think it's the same as a speeding ticket. So a lawsuit was filed. I did see that this morning, and I did see the three amigos that were named in the lawsuit specifically, which was the governor, the attorney general, and your Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney, who has done such a stellar job up there.
Yeah, those are three horrible people, I assure you. Well, and there are other suits coming too, and already probably filed in the case of gun lawsuits against them.
They are.
They had a bill, and I don't know what happened to this, but they had a bill which was sort of like a quota system on government contracts, state contracts. I don't know if you heard about this. I don't know if it ever passed, but it dealt with, I think this case it was women-owned businesses. That if they had that there was a quota system. I don't know if that ever passed. I would imagine that would be right for a challenge. I don't know if it was
just women-owned. It might not have been limited to women-owned.
Yeah, maybe.
I think there was a lot of concern that white contractors and things like that need not apply.
Okay.
Because of the quota system, and I don't even remember what the percentage was, other than it was low.
I would imagine that would be ripe for a challenge if that passed. I don't even know that passed. I just remember that early on in the Spanberger years. I haven't looked it up, but I would imagine that would be a constitutional violation.
A number of gun lawsuits that have already been put in.
Yeah, I believe so.
In May, they issued 78,000 permits, concealed weapon permits, the largest in Virginia history.
Yeah, she's going to be good for gun sales. Yeah. And then I remember, and I'm not kidding, I think she's going to be very good for gun sales. This is an aside, a few weeks ago as I was helping a buddy move, we stopped off, we're in King George County, and we stopped off at a gun shop. And we were talking to the guy, and he had mentioned how sales are brisk, and that come July 1st, all these different guns would be gone. So. Mm-hmm. So anyway, well, hopefully we've got a friendly Supreme Court and we can shoot down a lot of what she does to protect us. But yeah, she's turned out to be every bit as bad as we thought. Anything else I'm missing in Virginia? The budget, of course, is the biggie.
Let me ask you a question. Have you all been plagued with teen takeovers?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, and I thought of you yesterday because I saw an article about Newport News, and the teens were starting to take over. And I knew I would talk to you today.
2 weeks ago, there was some video that came out where teenagers were getting to the top of parking garage and then coming down it, and kids were hanging all out, standing up through sunroofs and this, that, and the other. And the police were called, and apparently one police officer who thought he was going to be hit by a car as it was exiting actually drew his gun. Well, that just went nuts, because obviously at the time he didn't know because of the tinted windows, but it was a white police officer that pulled his gun on a car of black teenagers.
Okay.
There was no incident, I mean, other than the drawing of the gun. Well, then last Saturday night, there was a group of like 300 kids that went to a part of Newport News called City Center. Mm-hmm. They've got a big fountain out there and businesses and everything around it, and the police were called, and I think 14 teenagers were arrested, and this, that, and the other. And I think it was just fighting and that kind of stuff. No gunshots, no stabbings or anything like that. But City Council on Tuesday I understand about 30 minutes before their work session, the mayor informed them that he wanted to impose curfew just on the city center area of town. And so they all went along with it, as everything is 7-0 in Newport News. You talk about a one-party government, that's I can tell you what it's like. Anyway, so they imposed it. And they talked about how great and wonderful this was. And then I read the details of the curfew. Now, this was June 9th. Apparently, on social media, word had gotten out that there was going to be another one of these on Wednesday night, which would have been 2 days ago. And I think that was what prompted the action by council. So the curfew that they imposed for a 7 p.m. curfew for unaccompanied minors was for June 10th. That was the Wednesday night they knew about. And then it was for every Friday and Saturday night from this weekend through July 5th. I'm thinking, well, I thought it was a significant curfew. What they've done is they've set this up as a nine-day curfew. And one of the days was already gone, and we didn't have an incident because it rained, and there was a pre-planned walk against gun violence anyway. But it's just on the weekends, Friday and Saturday night. So, you know, I worked with middle school kids. These kids are not dumb. They figure out if there's a curfew for Friday and Saturday night, well, maybe we can just do it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because there is no curfew. And if they limited it to this one section of town, well, we've got a mall. We've got other locations. Wednesday night, Support Warwick neighborhood has a free concert that usually goes from like 6 until 9. Well, what would happen to that concert if 300 kids just all of a sudden showed up? Well, nothing, because there's no 7 p.m. curfew for them to go other locations. So from my perspective, what you read about was an extremely performative, strictly performative. It's got very little substance to it from my perspective. I'm glad that nothing happened on Wednesday night because there were other things already planned for that area, but I'm not so sure that the teenagers in Newport News, that they think they're going to impact by this. If the organizers are really interested in doing something somewhere else or even in city center, the city council has left the door wide open for 5 nights out of the week, just not on Saturday and Sunday.
DC has a curfew. I think it makes sense. And, you know, when I was a kid, they used to have every night at like 10 o'clock on the local channel, they'd have this general announcement. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah.
And so they should really be home studying or playing the Xbox or whatever else the kids do. But I agree with you. I mean, we don't have that much of a problem, although I noticed that a lot of times kids will be out there in a pack and groups of people.
Yeah.
I don't think they're causing any problems. But, you know, the thing is, if you get a lot of them together at one time, it may get a little out of hand. So.
And social media seems to be the mechanism by which people find out about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And remember the old concept of a flash mob? You remember that?
Well, that's kind of what this is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they used to do those in malls and things.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Well, you could do the same thing. Call it a flash mob. Call it a teen takeover. Call it wilding. Someone told me it's not a teen takeover. It's called wilding. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the concept is it disrupts. I mean, you figure if you have 300 kids just converge on a shopping mall, that's going to disrupt business, and it might actually increase theft.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, you send 10 kids in to create havoc in a small store, and you got the one guy hauling stuff out. So, you know,
I remember.
It's unfortunate.
I don't know that this will continue or that it'll be a problem, but you don't want it to hurt Newport News' image, or you don't want it to drive away tourists or anything like that. So,
well, I think Newport News as a whole needs to restore its image already. I mean, after you have a first grade teacher getting shot by a 6-year-old, and that happened back in 2023, boom, that kind of puts a negative light on your city. And it's, I mean, You look at Newport News, we got the highest taxes on the Virginia Peninsula.
Okay.
We've got the largest industrial base, single location industrial base in Virginia. Why are our personal taxes so high? Got to ask questions about that. But yeah, it doesn't do anything. If you heard about it up in Northern Virginia, then it was just not a self-contained local Newport News story. And it wasn't even a Hampton Roads contained story, apparently. So
I saw the headline about teens taking over Newport News. I'm like, oh, I knew I would talk to you and find out what happened there. Well, that sounds like we need to get someone else elected there in Newport News to deal with this.
I can't think of who might do it, but I know that there's a contested election in November for the mayor's race. It ought to be interesting. And talking about local politics, that whole thing where Plattner, Pratt, out in Los Angeles.
Oh yes,
where he was doing so well. He was doing so well. If you let the vote count go long enough, they'll find the ballots that they need.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Pratt has decided that all the information that he's gathered during his campaign that he intended to use against Karen Bass in the general election, well, now that he's not a candidate, there's no general election he has to worry about. There's no election laws he has to worry about. And the little news clip that I saw said that he used the word "it's now war." So apparently he has some inside information or whatever that he intends to bring up something every day after the election is certified. He wants to wait till the election is certified. And I don't know if it's just information against Bass or if it's information against both of the Democrats. But he says it's all information that he had that he was going to use in the general election. So I'm tending to think it's probably more about Bass than the other girl. But we'll see. And Spencer Pratt is just, he feels like the election was stolen. Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Nithya Raman, on the night of the election, she was crying as if she knew she had lost. She'd be in third place. She wouldn't be in the runoff. And now, with the surge of votes at the end, she's in the runoff.
Yeah.
I just think, and I know I've said this last week, but it's just, there's no excuse for a week later still not to know the results.
Right.
And the problem is it's not done for convenience. You might say, well, let's make it convenient for voters. It's not. All of this is designed for fraud, whether it's ballot boxes, ballot boxes outside the polling place, mass sending out of ballots, like I said, voter ballot harvesting, where you go out and pick out ballots. And every other state does this in an evening. And we need California to be on the same par with every other state. Now, you may say, well, it's because they can come in so late. Well, that's wrong. They shouldn't be able to come in any time after Election Day. That ought to be it. You have to pick some day to say this is it. And you're giving people
it's someday a week later. It's someday a week later.
There is federal legislation which talks about Election Day and defines Election Day. And there are those that would argue that the accepting of ballots after Election Day is not isn't legal.
Right.
So it is a Supreme Court case now being heard. So who knows, maybe we can get rid of this. But we need to, if for no other reason, to maintain the credibility of the election. If you don't get the results until a week later, people aren't going to believe it. They're not going to have faith in the election. Right. So on one hand, you got convenience for the voters. On the other hand, you have to have credibility. I think giving people a week to vote is enough in terms of convenience. So you don't need to do any more than that. But all right, Phil. Well, any winners and losers? I had trouble with this because I had so many choices for a loser. For example, Nancy Mace lost her campaign for governor there in South Carolina, came in 5th, so that was really pretty bad. There's Scott Pelley as a potential loser because he continues to deny a sort of a liberal bias. And the thing is, even in its heyday of 60 Minutes, it always had a bias. It always had a point of view. Now, I thought a lot of Mike Wallace and Morley Safer and those folks, they were legends, but they came in with a bias. So for Scott Pelley to act as if they're objective, of course, is absurd. And then, of course, there were Carmelo Anthony's parents who decided to, and I feel sympathy for them because their son's going to be in jail for 13 years for stabbing, 17 years at least for stabbing. But they tried to turn it around into a racial issue, or, we should have had a black lawyer or something. So I thought that was bad. But of those, and there's also the New York Times reporter that's rushing to Jodi Kantor, I believe, rushing to Graham Plattner's defense. And she was involved in exposing Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein, I guess his name is. So anyway, those were my choices. And I don't know which I would say is the bigger loser there. I think because of a lifetime of service, I'm going to go with Scott Pelley. I think a lifetime achievement award on his part. But anyway, do you have a loser of the week?
I do.
Well, who's that?
J.B. Pritzker.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Governor of Illinois.
All right.
He managed, through inaction, to lose the Chicago Bears to Indiana.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And that, I mean, we've tried in Virginia to get major sports teams and this, that, and the other, and have not been successful. Here's a guy that had one of the original NFL teams, and between him as governor and that outstanding mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, they managed to lose the Chicago Bears. Who's going to be next? The White Sox, the Cubs, the Blackhawks. Who knows who they'll lose next? The Bulls. I just love the fact that little old Indiana came in and just passed legislation that would help them build the stadium that they need and whatnot. And they're not that far from Chicago, so the fans will still be able to get there. But Illinois will not be getting the tax revenues. So from my perspective, when you lose something that iconic, you're a loser. You're a loser of the week.
Are they going to keep the name Chicago Bears, or are they going to go with the Indiana somethings?
They may keep the name, but who cares? It's just a name.
I agree, but if they change the name, even that is a real loss, because then you've lost. You not only you'd actually lose a franchise. It's no longer under your name.
Yeah.
I think a good name, the Indiana Hoosiers. Call them the Hoosiers.
Well, that might already be copyrighted.
Maybe, but I think that's great news. I love that. And, the thing is, Chicago Field is an old stadium. In the 90s, I think they renovated it.
Yeah.
They didn't do a good job renovating it, but they renovated it. And so, that's a major loss. You're right. That's a good reason to call them a loser. Oakland lost both, the Raiders and the A's to Vegas.
Yeah.
So they're in Las Vegas. So.
Oakland initially lost them to Los Angeles for a number of years, and then they went back to Oakland.
That's right. Well, the thing is, in Oakland's case, it's such a dump that there's just I don't know if there's any saving it. I think Oakland is so crime-ridden and so bad. Well, my winner of the week would be Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt in the Wednesday congressional baseball game. Schmidt was the MVP, and he had a catch that was so good that it made it onto the ESPN highlights.
Yeah.
So that is quite the bragging rights to make such a catch.
Yeah.
So I go with Eric Schmidt as the winner of the week. Do you have a winner of the week?
Well, I'll give you one, but that also was the 6th straight year that the Republicans beat the Democrats, and it was a beatdown. It was 11-2.
That's right, 11-2. Yeah, that was great.
My big winner is the United States Department of Justice, because you remember that financier, Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yes.
He was appealing his conviction, and the appellate court upheld his conviction. So old Sam is going to continue to cool his heels in prison. And where he belongs for all the scam and stuff that he did on people, and the millions and millions and millions of dollars that people lost as a result of his shenanigans. And so I want to commend the Department of Justice for making sure he did not win his appeal. And so the DOJ on this one particularly is my winner of the week.
Well, I think that's great. Yeah, I agree. And he's a big-time lib, by the way. He gave a lot of money to,
Yes, he did. Yes,
to
he
Democrats. And you're right, he was a thief. I think it was basically like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Where he was taking the money and then taking from one person and then taking someone else's money to give to that person. Well, I hope you have a good weekend. I am looking forward to this weekend because it's after Memorial Day, so I can wear my seersucker suit, which I haven't worn in years, and I took it into the tailors, and I should get it tomorrow, so I'll be wearing it at church. I'm worship leader on Sunday, and
with a bow tie, I hope.
No, I don't have a bow tie. I'll have the traditional red and white rep tie. You know, I bought that suit like 20 years ago. I was at a wedding in Lexington, Kentucky. And I went by this store and I went in and it was like 120 something. It wasn't that expensive. So I bought it. And over the last 20 years, I haven't really worn it that much. And then I put on weight. So I had to have it altered. The jacket's a little tight, but it works. So it can still work. But, you know, the thing is that one of the reasons maybe I didn't wear it is that you kind of stand out in a seersucker suit because you're all pinstripe. Yeah. So you got to have a little bit of confidence or a certain moxie to wear it. So, but I'll wear the seersucker suit and
the white flat top hat.
Well, you know, the risk maybe in it is kind of like an old man's suit. So I don't know if that makes me look older. I'm always teased about driving the old man car and wearing the old man suit. But anyway, I hope you have a good weekend. I don't know if you have anything planned. Maybe get in some golf.
Well, I play golf during the week. I don't play on the weekends, but I've got 2 events to attend tomorrow. Maybe 3. Maybe 3 events tomorrow. I forgot one of them. Yeah, I got 3. 1 in the morning, 1 at 1, and 1 at 4.
Okay, all right, good.
And you know,
well, hopefully it'll be a good.
Yeah, it'll be good weather. It'll be good weather.
You know, I was as we sign off, and I'll give some more thought to this. But you remember John McLaughlin and the McLaughlin group? Whenever he would sign off, it would be bye bye. But you like that the ending. But anyway, thanks everybody for checking out the Substack, and we look forward to seeing you then next week. And have a great weekend, everybody. All right, take care. Have a good night.